Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm just here to talk about these protests in LA and to talk about Lloyd Vallow Daybell. And there was a reporter allegedly who was shot at on and again there's numerous protests um, about what's going on in LA. With that being said, let's get into if I can find it. Here we go.
They don't know the first thing about you or Walmart Plus. Like their Walmart Plus members get free delivery on more than just groceries. Free delivery on these apples and this.
Sorry, I can't zoom through
The Walmart you
this
thought you knew
ad.
is now new.
A reporter was hit by a rubber bullet on live TV while covering the Los Angeles ICE
Y'all
protest.
heard that right.
9 News Australia's U.S. correspondent Lauren Tomasi was in the field as LAPD clashed with demonstrators in the downtown district amid outrage over immigration and customs enforcement raids throughout the city. The outlet shared footage of Tomasi describing the scene on camera when a rubber bullet appeared to strike her leg near the end of her report. Despite her initial scream, Tomasi could be heard saying, "I'm good," and she later confirmed to 9 News that she and her cameraman are safe. And as of June 9th, it was not confirmed which law enforcement agency the officer who fired the shot was working for. The LAPD reportedly has no comment on any specific incident related to the protests. According to
And
CNN,
this is
Australia's Department
Access
of Foreign Trade
Hollywood,
issued
by
a
the way.
statement of support for Tomasi, noting that, quote, all journalists should be able to do their work safely.
Damn
The
right.
comment comes after President Donald Trump authorized the deployment of 2,000 National Guard troops to Los Angeles against the wishes of California Governor Gavin Newsom and LA Mayor Karen Bass, the former of whom called the decision, quote, purposefully inflammatory and an attempt to manufacture a crisis.
I know that this here is a little pop up thing, but I just thought since I had a little bit of time to talk about that and also get into this day three of Lloyd Bello Daybell. But I am going to try to come back later and talk about day four. But I'll probably be up here in 90 minutes or so. But, let's get it.
The move is the first of its kind since the 1960s. The protest began on June 6th after federal agents launched operations in 3 locations across Los Angeles, resulting in more than 100 immigrants being taken into custody per ICE. The LAPD has said it does not assist or participate in mass deportations or determine an individual's immigration status, and confirmed on June 9th that dozens of demonstrators were arrested over the weekend, including one person suspected of throwing a Molotov cocktail at an officer. In addition to rubber bullets, law enforcement is said to have used tear gas to disperse protesters.
It's a war zone out there. And here's what I want to say about immigration. Um, Immigration and homelessness are the two biggest problems in California. But here's the thing: it's estimated that at least 35% of the homeless people in California are immigrants. Believe it or not. And Gavin Newsom, unfortunately, he has not did a damn thing about the homelessness, and he hasn't done nothing about immigration. Two of California's biggest problems. And then Gavin Newsom wants to have a pissy attitude with Trump, this, that, and the third. But here's the thing: if Gavin Newsom was doing his job, there would be no need for Trump to, some people want to say, quote unquote, overstep him or whatever. As some people will say, I myself am an independent. What Gavin Newsom has done concerning homelessness and immigration is little to none. That's why Trump had to step in with the immigration. Now, Do I agree with everything that Trump is doing on immigration? No, I do not. But again, it is what it is. Um, Now we're gonna go to the AP and listen to what they had to say about the riots in LA. And this here was as of 3 hours ago. Let's get it.
The Legacy Caliber is the highest resolution compact speaker available.
Okay, they really. Okay, I thought the AP was gonna show something. The AP look like they ain't showing nothing much. Uh, let's go to live now from Fox.
And you see there some kind of dumpster, some kind of container that they were
And this here
successfully
was
being
last
able
night.
to set ablaze. We should also point out that we watched as 5 Waymo cars. Whoa. Okay, so now we're doing donuts in reverse in the intersection.
What
And so
the
what's
hell?
going on there? That looks very strange.
I
Somebody.
don't know what the hell going on there.
I don't know what to make of this. This seems so very dangerous. Obviously, these people throwing the rocks are not happy with that person there. I don't know if they felt this person was endangering them. This is a very bizarre scene there, and why that person would do those donuts like that in reverse. Was that person trying to send a statement? And, whoa, wow. Yeah, what's going on? He seems to be having trouble controlling that car, or he's driving erratically on purpose. I think that whomever threw rocks or whatever it was, yeah, he's having trouble controlling that car. Or has decided to go past those barricades there. This is basically the Alvera Street area, the plaza. I'm just wondering, not where traffic typically would go. Susan, was
What is
this
this
person
dude
trying
doing?
to hurt or endanger those that were in the streets there? I feel like the people in that intersection or near that intersection felt as if, yeah, that this was somebody that was not one of them. No. Look at the way this person's driving on the sidewalk. Oh my gosh, this is very scary.
Hey, Eyes.
FYI, something's going on here with this driver.
Hey.
Who is that a sidewalk he's driving on? Well, that's a part of that plaza area, Alvera Street, right. Not far from the Chinese Museum, and it's clearly not set up for traffic. It was at one point, but now you have all of those balustrades or whatever they're called, the barriers, that keep you from driving exactly where he's driving now. And if you've ever
Here's my question. Where's Gavin Newsom? Where's Karen Bass? Where's LAPD? Where's LA County Sheriff's Office? I'll wait.
been there in an afternoon, oftentimes dancing, he's going at a pretty high rate of speed. That is way too fast on a city street where there are people and bicycles of all sorts, whether you're with these demonstrations or not. It makes
And
me
again,
wonder who this person
welcome,
is
Almond
and
Eyes.
what statement they're trying to make. Are they trying to agitate the people that are out there on the streets at this hour? Look at the way that driver is driving. Is this somebody on drugs? Are they drunk? Who does that? Who drives in reverse like that in the middle of other traffic, endangering innocent people? That's a scary situation in its own right. Oh, he's out of the car now. He's decided to abandon that vehicle. And with what? He's got a hold of a dumpster trying to move it, but unsuccessful. So now he's going to get back in the car. And by the way, I think I saw some shattered glass. I think that the agitators were able to throw a piece of concrete or what have you at him, and he was able broke through the window because then he was throwing things back out again. Look at the way that driver is driving. That is a very scary scene. It's almost like this person is
No law and order anywhere.
out of his mind. And look at the crowd. Everybody's coming towards him because he's stuck. He's stuck there. Now he's going to do things quite illegally to get out of the way, but it's clear that he was trying to go after the agitators or whomever is left over in the downtown area.
Oh, somebody just threw a bottle at him.
So apparently the sentiment was, okay, you're not with us, therefore you're against us. Well, look,
doing donuts in reverse. You could kill anybody like that. He's been driving, it seems to be very erratically. It makes you wonder what the mindset is of this person. Is it someone who just lost their mind? They just don't care who they hurt. They're trying to make a statement or what? But this is something that I'm surprised that we don't have a police chopper over this one as in a pursuit of some sort, because this behavior was very, very erratic.
Erratic. He was able to outrun, or thanks to the fact that he's in a vehicle and the other.
Again, where's LAPD? Where's the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office? Again, I'll wait.
On foot. He had to get out of that traffic, so he's decided to back up. And let's see what he's going to do now. Now we're basically, I believe, in the Union Station area, going through Union Station.
Wait a minute, he almost ran somebody over.
Or stop sign.
Going through a stop sign. Oh, he sideswiped a bicyclist. Oh, is that what happened? Is that, we're talking to our booth right now. So he sideswiped a bicyclist. That's why the crowd.
Oh, and that's a hit and run.
But his behavior then, I would say, it wasn't necessarily just in response.
That's hit and run.
He continues to drive erratically, and not sure the mindset of this person here, but if they were an innocent person just trying to get out of the way, they're not leaving and getting out of the way in a normal fashion.
When he left that intersection, it was sort of interesting the way he was wobbling. I thought perhaps the car was in some way disabled, but no, that's just his way of being somewhat threatening. But he sideswiped a bicyclist. That's what got the rest of the crowd, those that were on foot outside of the vehicle, against him. Now we're in that place where Skyfox is overhead, but you got that high rise there, so it's going to be difficult to see the vehicle. I wonder if he had any idea that he was being tracked by a news helicopter.
Again, who knows what went down, how that happened, where a bicyclist was sideswiped? Was it intentional? Did someone get in the way? And then there was a panic scene, but it was very...
Speed this up.
Thing is, on their monitor, it's a very strange thing. Okay, so...
You know what, y'all? Let's go to Karen Bass and her excuses.
Speed traps are draining drivers' wallets, but this $50 device is helping people avoid them. There's a revolutionary new...
Karen Bass now at the podium.
Just to catch you up on where we are today, as of now, we have not received words of raids. I think you all understand that the city is not notified when ICE goes to a workplace. And what we rely on, frankly, is reporting from the community, especially the immigrant rights organizations that have formed a rapid response network. That is usually how...
And Karen Bass, you're part of the problem. Shut up.
...raid taking place. As far as we know, there might be one rally today, but we don't believe there's going to be a series of them, and we don't have a lot of information about that one rally. I do want to say that at 6 o'clock tonight, though, there will be an interfaith prayer vigil.
And let me be clear. Ain't nothing about these protests are peaceful whatsoever. Law and order in LA. It's not there anywhere. Trump done found this as an excuse to send the military after illegal immigrants, which unfortunately, the way that the immigrants are acting gives Trump the perfect excuse to stick the military on them, like he always wanted to do. It is what it is.
Of which I will be honored to attend. And it will be at 6 o'clock, calling for peace, calling for unifying our community, calling for supporting immigrant Angelenos. So let me just say now, commenting about last night, the violence we saw last night, there is just no way to view it as unacceptable. So I do not believe that individuals that commit vandalism and violence in the city really are in support of immigrants. They have another agenda. If you support immigrants and the rights of immigrants to be in our city, you would not be tearing the city apart or vandalizing it. And I do want to say, especially for our national audiences, that those of us in Los Angeles understand that the unrest that has happened are a few blocks within the downtown area. It is not all of downtown, and it is not all of the city. Unfortunately, the visuals make it seem as though our entire city is in flames, and it is not the case at all. And I think it's important to say that. Now, having said that, though, the violence and the damage is unacceptable. It is not going to be tolerated, and individuals will be arrested and prosecuted to the full extent of the law. And no individual that is involved in vandalism should think because they went home that night that they're off scot-free, because investigations will take place, and I am assured by the police department that there will be follow-up and arrests. The extensive vandalism downtown, especially of the graffiti, that is
I gotta
just
go out camera for a
blanketing
second,
a
y'all.
number of blocks.
Just for a second.
Has been extensive. We are 1 year away from the World Cup. This is about beautifying our city and bringing our city together. And so I am calling on business leaders, community leaders, faith leaders to come together downtown in the next few days to talk about how we are going to clean up the city. Obviously, city workers are already out there removing the graffiti, but this is so extensive it's going to take community-wide involvement. We had launched a program called Shine LA a couple of months ago in preparation for the World Cup, and now we are called on to direct that citywide. We need people from all over the city to come to downtown and to help with this effort. The staff, the mayoral staff standing behind me, represent the best of our organizers and community liaisons, and they will be leading that effort. I do want to go back and say that, just go back in time a minute. On Thursday of last week, Los Angeles was peaceful. There was nothing going on here that warranted the federal intervention that took place the very next day. If we want to look at the cause of what is happening here,
Who has seen a print method that has such traction, such momentum in such a short amount of time, like we have seen or are seeing with direct-to-film? I didn't think so. On this channel alone, we've discussed desktop direct-to-film options starting at 13 inches, all the way up to 64-inch printing powerhouses. Now, something we haven't covered in depth is going to be a 24-inch, 100-square-foot plus.
If we want to look at the cause of what is happening here, I'm taken back to raids that took place on Friday, and the uncertainty and the fear and the fact that families across the city are terrified.
Okay, y'all, I'm
they don't
back.
know if they should go to work. They don't know school. We have people that were detained. We don't even know the exact.
The only reason people are terrified, Karen, is because you and LAPD and Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office do not have control over your city. That's why people are scared.
Numbers of the people that were detained. We have people that have not had contact with legal representation, nor have they even had contact with their families. And so there is an awful lot of concern. When the administration started, they said that this was about crime. They were going to go after violent felons, drug dealers, and I don't know how that matches with the scenes that we saw of people in Home Depot running through the parking lot because they were afraid that they were going to get arrested. You are talking about people who are trying to survive day by day, which is what a day laborer is doing, and why they would be considered as part of a problem as opposed to contributing to our economy is very difficult for me to understand. We've also received reports of people who were here legally, who were showing up for their annual appointment at the immigration office and maybe even showing up with their family and getting detained. This is just absolutely...
Okay, if that is happening, Karen, show the proof. If that's happening.
necessary. People have asked me, what are the Marines going to do when they get here? That's a good question. I have no...
Now, I'll tell you exactly what the Marines going to do. They're going to come down and quote unquote neutralize the problem. Now, I'm not saying that the Marines are going to unalive anyone, but trust me and believe, Marines know a thing or two about detaining someone. I'm just saying.
idea. The National Guard that are here now have one assignment, and that is to protect one building, which is the federal building downtown, a second building, which is the federal building on Westwood Boulevard. And as far as I know, nothing has happened in Westwood at all. So this was not needed. The idea that the administration would usurp the authority of our state government, take it away from our governor, Gavin Newsom. The governor knows that
The only reason Trump took it away because Trump felt like y'all wasn't gonna do nothing, and unfortunately, y'all proved Donald Trump right.
we put a request in for the National Guard and it went to him. He would comply. There was never an issue there because we were never thinking about calling upon the National Guard. So I do want you to know that the violence that has happened has required LAPD to ask for additional assistance, but not from the federal government. We are a county of 88 cities. There's a number of police departments in those cities, and we have the sheriff's department, and so we have received assistance from the California Highway Patrol. I mentioned the sheriffs from Orange County, San Bernardino, Riverside, Santa Barbara, Ventura County, and a number of law enforcement departments around the county. So with them being fully deployed now, we're establishing a unified command under LAPD and Chief McDonnell, which will accelerate our ability to respond to hotspots when people splinter off and create pockets of trouble. So I do want to thank all the officers who've been working tirelessly and putting themselves at risk to keep our city safe. But the
Respecto de internet, todo funciona bien y además es súper rápido.
solution of all of this is for the administration to stop the raids. We have heard that these raids might take place for the next 30 days. We don't know how many are going to take place in a given day. And you just think about the disruption to the families and the disruption to our local economy. You might have a mother who goes...
Now, Karen, you know good well Donald Trump is not gonna stop them raids. Trump needs the raids basically to make himself look good. I mean, look, it is what it is, people. Only thing Donald Trump cares about is looking good to the public. And whether y'all like it or not, Trump needs these raids to look good.
to work in someone's home, doing child care or taking care of the household, a father who is the gardener or doing landscaping, people who are working in factories, and people without documents who are running small businesses, contributing to our economy in every step of the way. So I just want to conclude by saying we are 12 months away from the world.
And here's what I want to say. Yes, there are people who do contribute to society, pay taxes, things of that nature. However, there are some of those immigrants that are unfortunately criminals. Now, I'm not saying that again. I'm not saying that all of them are, but there's good people, and then there's bad people everywhere. The problem that I have is that the good people feel like they're gonna get penalized too. Now coming into this country illegally is indeed wrong, but the reason why you have such a problem with immigration is due to lack of funding and partial mismanagement, and not to mention that Customs and Border Patrol is also understaffed and overworked.
We need the administration to help us prepare. They are talking about spending over $100 million with this deployment, which is why I say I
Why?
feel like we've all been in Los Angeles.
Why would you put $100 million in basically sticking the Marines on these people when you can put that $100 million into Border Patrol? That makes no sense.
A part of a grand
Get some
experiment
drink.
to see what happens when when the federal government decides they want to roll up on a state or roll up on a city and take over. So with that, I would open it up for questions, of which Zach will manage. Well, first of all, when I say a few streets, I don't mean that to mean like it's very small, because the vandalism, especially the graffiti, has happened kind of outside of that. But nevertheless, I'm trying to counter the image that this is happening all over our city, because it is not. And so we do want law enforcement to respond aggressively. Anybody that is out committing crimes are not doing it in solidarity with immigrants. They are doing the exact opposite. So we have to enforce the law here. I'm going to continue advocating with the federal government, though, just to see how disruptive this is. But there needs to be a call that says this is unacceptable. If you engage in this behavior, you will be prosecuted. Now we're looking at things like curfews. We're looking at other aggressive response that we can have in case this violence breaks out again. Well, I do think that they are, but I do think that we need to be in terms of prevention. And I don't mean aggressive in terms of engaging with the crowd, but there's things that you can do to prevent. So I had a brief conversation with the chief this morning about a curfew. So we will be meeting about that later on today. And that's the type of aggressive tactic I was referring to.
This is how to make instant mashups in TJ Studio. First, load in 2 tracks you want to mash up in TJ Studio. Next, once on the timeline, bring the parts of the songs you want to mash up together like this. Let's use one track's chorus with the other track's drum. Then activate TJ Studio's Dunsky.
The new information this minute. Go ahead. Well, that doesn't mean that I will stop. You know that. I'm not going to give up. But on the other hand, you just said 60 days. Somebody else is going to say 30. Somebody's going to say 90. The bottom line is we don't know. And that is consistent with ICE raids, of course. We never know when. We never know how long. But that very notion creates such a terrible sense of fear in our city. And it's just not right to do that.
Again, Karen, the only reason why there's fear in your city is due to the lack of leadership from you, the lack of leadership from your sheriff's office, and a lack of leadership from LAPD. So again, what are you talking about?
To a population who's trying to survive. We are a city of immigrants. Right. No, I think that was money, as I understand it, that they were going to spend on the troop mobilization. Maybe that's what you're referring to. They don't need to spend it themselves. So I could not even imagine that they would come here and ask us to reimburse their unnecessary expense. Just imagine what we could do with $130 million in terms of preparing our city for the World Cup. Exactly.
This one's talking about the World Cup.
Yes.
I guarantee you, people in your city are not worried about the World Cup right now. Only thing the people in your city want is safety and security that you currently are not providing.
No, that is correct, but Julia, at this point in time, that would be really early. Oh, okay, where are you going? Let me I mean, that is a worry. I mean, the theme of the administration is uncertainty. And so I have been very hopeful, and you know this, in terms of the fires and the cooperation we received from
which you also failed on.
the federal government, working well with the administration, and now the pendulum has swung in a whole nother area. Well, you know what it would mean. I mean, you know that we came off of a very difficult budget year, but you also, it's very important to understand that it takes FEMA a long time. We're still looking for some reimbursements from COVID, and that didn't have anything to do with this administration. With LAPD. No, well, yeah, let me just say that I have been, close coordination has not been necessary right now, but I have been in conversation with Superintendent Cavallo. We spoke the other day, and what he is deciding to do, I know he's deciding to protect the children. You know that a month ago or 2 months ago, ICE agents showed up to an elementary school to do a welfare check on some kids. It's very interesting that you would send federal officers in to check on elementary school kids. But I know he's also dealing with the fear from the parents. So, for example, at my grandson's school yesterday, there was ice that was visible, and you have parents who are dropping off and picking up their kids. How do you think they feel? I mean, it's a sense of intimidation and fear that is just so unnecessary and so corrosive to our city. No. I can't imagine that there would be a conflict between local and federal police from the LAPD perspective. That will not happen. No, I do not. I mean, I talked to the chief an hour ago. No, we're not notified of anything. I will tell you that Saturday night, when there was definitely some vandalism downtown, not what happened in the morning, which was in Paramount, but downtown Saturday night, and the president tweeted out that it was because he sent in the National Guard that the violence was stopped, and he congratulated the National Guard on Saturday. The National Guard didn't arrive in the city until Sunday.
Granger knows that if you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, you go to great lengths.
Absolutely not. I mean, my guess is that you have social media phenomena that calls for parties, that calls for street takeovers, and I think it's in the same vein. What I do believe very strongly is that the groups that are vandalizing downtown are not a part of the immigrant rights movement, are not concerned about immigrants, are concerned about wreaking havoc, and are immigrant rights organizations that have been institutions, well-established, well-respected institutions in our city for decades, are used to doing protests. They are very well organized and coordinated, and they don't tolerate the violence. Yesterday's demonstration that was put on by labor, especially in solidarity with David Huerta, they had a system there where they wouldn't let people in a certain area if they had a mask on. My point is that we know how to take care of these issues ourselves. And then when you said about how the reason why, things have gotten under control because of the National Guard, I gave you an example where the National Guard wasn't even here, and he was tweeting that out. The other thing is that if you want to know what the National Guard is doing, drive by the federal building. They are stationary at the federal building. protecting the building. They are not out doing crowd control or anything like that. So I don't know how he could say that the National Guard is who saved the day. Who saved the day are our local law enforcement agencies. Well, on Friday, I was notified when the raids were happening. I was notified, there were 3 raids in the city of Los Angeles. There might have been some others I've heard about that were outside of the city that day. And I heard about it when the Rapid Response Network began notifying people that a raid was taking place. And then at that point, the family members know, hey, my son, my father, my spouse is working at this place. And then they start showing up. So that's when I heard about it. And then shortly after that, you began hearing from the administration. The National Guard issue came into play on Friday as well as Saturday. That's when I was talking to officials with the Trump administration, including Tom Homan. I spoke to him maybe about an hour before he said if I got out of line or the governor did, we'd both be arrested. Right. I appreciate that question. Ironically, the IOC was here last week, and so I met with them directly. We did actually a panel with them, and we were talking then about how vast our city is, and how if something happens in one area, it doesn't mean it's happening all around the city. So it's a little ironic we were having that conversation. I have not talked to them directly since then. Needless to say, my focus has been on keeping Angelino safe and protected here. What I'm thinking is yes, because there's no need for it to be anything other than that. It's just important to reiterate that what is happening is not happening. It's not even happening in the entire downtown area. So there would be no need for a citywide curfew. But again, this is just preliminary discussions. It's one thing to say a curfew, then you have to enforce it.
Do this.
Well, I wish I could say and not have to worry about, but we're coming together. I spoke to business leaders this morning saying that we need to come together, not just to talk, but come together with a plan on how we're going to repair the damage that has taken place. And
Okay, Karen, I'm done with you. I'm done with the whole riot mess. Prayers to the people of Los Angeles. Whenever you guys vote out Newsom, vote out Karen Bass. With that being said, we're gonna get into Lori Vallow Daybell day 3 recap. With that being said, shout out to Hidden True Crime. Here we go.
Hey everybody, it's... Hello everyone, thank you for your patience with the chats. June 9th, 2020, 5 years ago today, I remember...
I'll be back in a second, y'all. Hold
was
on.
the day that the remains of J.J. Vallow and Tyler Ryan were found buried in Chad Daybell's backyard. I was already emotionally invested by then. How could I not be? My husband, John, a criminal psychologist, and I had just recorded our very first podcast episode. We were sitting at our kitchen table with microphones and 100 unanswered questions between us. That morning, I woke up with a certain property, but not the house this time. It was his yard. I was messaging a local contact in Rexburg who saw Chad leave his daughter Emma's house and speed off in his car. Minutes later, they watched police pull him over and handcuff him. Finally. I will never forget the heartbreak of hearing Larry and Kate Woodcock confirm that JJ had been found, their beloved grandson, their little man, as they called him. Later, we learned it was Brandon Boudreaux, the same Brandon now testifying here in Arizona who stepped forward to identify JJ's remains. Meanwhile, East Idaho News' Nate Heaton was overhead in a chopper reporting what he saw unfold in that backyard. But none of us would have known, not yet, how horrific the scene truly was. Kylie, she was so mutilated that her remains were immediately identified by sight. That detail would come later, and it would haunt us. Over the years, I have heard from so many people sharing where they were on that day, how they felt, what it did to them. Heather Daybell, Chad's sister-in-law, broke for tears. We all saw the Woodcocks hold each other and sob when the news was confirmed. And today, Colby Ryan, Florida's only surviving child, shared his pain on his YouTube channel. Colby J. Ryan is his YouTube channel. He writes, quote, 5 years ago, I got one of the worst calls possible. Colby, Chad's been arrested. They found human remains at his property. I remember where I was and what I was doing. I also remember in that moment a tangible hug wrapping my body. Nothing will ever be the same. But I find peace in this picture. Kylie and JJ will never be forgotten. I love you both. And here we are 5 years later. Today is day 3 of yet another trial. Lori Daybell's third trial. And this time she's on trial in Phoenix for the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux, the same man who had to identify 7-year-old JJ's body 5 years ago to the day. And I keep asking myself, how are we still here? How is she still here? Still arguing, still manipulating, still claiming innocence, still filing motions, still appealing for conviction, still demanding to be heard after silencing so many. We know what she and Chad have done. Both were convicted of murdering Tylee, JJ, and Chad's wife, Tammy Daybell. Lori was convicted again just weeks ago for the murder of Charles Vallow, her fourth husband. And now, this trial, the attempted murder of Brandon. And still, she fights, she lies, she smiles, she represents herself. And it reminds me of something
Herself and nothing more.
Are you done? That line echoes in my head. It's what we've all wanted to scream. Are you done yet?
Yeah.
Are you done? Because the destruction she's caused is immeasurable, and the fact that we're still here, she is still here, that she is still here is maddening. But I know, really, you are asking the same question, especially after what happened Friday, when Lori was kicked out of the court for coming back to the judge. I can't tell you how many of you reached out. Some even told me you packed your bags this weekend and traveled here in person because you couldn't believe this woman is still fighting, still spinning her story, still playing the role of the persecuted prophetess. But she is not the victim. She never was. JJ and Tylee were. Tammy was. Charles was. And Brandon. Brandon is still living with the aftermath on the stand last week, facing the woman who tried to have him killed. We'll have more on the trial in a moment. But first, I just had to say on this day of remembrance that we hold JJ and Tylee in our hearts, we honor them, and we remind the world that they will never be.
Today's most demanding workstation users choose HP workstations powered by AMD Riots.
And to the trial today, day 3. Lori strolled into court just after 10:30 this morning wearing a black blazer and a purple top. Her hair was curled and down, and I dare say less Shih Tzu, pebbles, split stony than last week. Then things got weird. As soon as Judge Bresky entered, he immediately called for a sidebar, but this wasn't your average whisper at the bench sidebar. No, like, they could have just turned on the white noise. We were all removed from the courtroom. Media, public, everyone marched out into the hallway, and we stayed there.
What happened
for
there?
nearly 40 minutes. No explanation, no announcement, just a whole lot of speculation buzzing around the hallway. Here, what we were asking, did Lori suddenly decide to plead guilty? Yeah, doubtful. Was she trying
Very
to play
doubtful.
things again? Very possible. Or was this one of those closed-door evidentiary hearings, maybe about whether the jury can hear about her past crimes? I think that's a solid one. But the truth is, we may never know. Because the courtroom cameras were turned off, microphones muted, the law and crime photographer came up to me, what's going on? We had to turn off our... Court TV was out of the hallway with us. And when we finally came back in, Judge Boreski didn't offer even a hint of what went down. He simply thanked the jury for their patience and told them a problem had to be resolved, one that, in his words, was no one's fault, and that the jury should not speculate. We certainly can't, but the jury, no speculation. He then added that Detective Piller would not be finishing his testimony as planned. Instead, we'd be hearing from a new witness out of order again. And that witness was Danny Moss. Danny appeared in his company's t-shirt, which I give him credit for. It's now on national television. A smart businessman Danny Moss is. And according to that t-shirt and Trina K's questioning, we learned that Danny owns Dan's Window Tint-Up in Rexburg, Idaho. And yes, this was a curveball, but a pretty strategic one, because the windows in this case, specifically on the Jeep that was driven by Alex Fox, registered to Charles Vallow, they are a key detail in the attempted shooting of Brandon Trudeau. Prosecutor Trina Key started by having Danny explain how his business works. It's a small operation, he said, just a couple of codes. Clients can be reached however they want. Call, text, email, drop by in person, easygoing setup. He confirmed that if someone calls the shop, it's either him or one of his team members who answers. And if someone wants to make an appointment, they pull up the calendar right there. If the client can't make it during regular hours, no problem. They can drop the car off after hours. We're flexible, and yes, they often text customers available time spots to get the job done. Great advertisement for a company and great setup for what happens next. Trina then moved him into the more technical territory, asking him to explain the levels of tinting available for car windows. It's not just darker light, there's an actual science to how visible someone or something is inside a vehicle, depending on the tint percentage. And here's Danny explaining those tint levels in his own words.
I want to talk a little bit about windows in general. Are there different levels or percentages of tinting that are put on?
Yeah, there's called the VLT percentage.
Be right back.
So when your eye can see, it's not infrared or ultraviolet, but visual light comes through the glass. It's represented by a number, and the window film manufacturers assign that number to how dark the film is. So 5% window film only lets in 5% of the visible light. 70% lets in 70% of light, essentially looks clearer, or 5% is glassy or dark.
So if someone puts 5% VLT onto a vehicle, are you able to see into that car?
No.
What about 20%? What is that?
You can see like a silhouette of somebody that's in there.
different percentages, like front or rear windows?
Yeah.
Don't buy that camera that's going viral to keep burglars away. Do this instead. For only $22 a month, I got a premium home security system. All I did was answer some basic questions on this website. I got it all set up and running in just 3 days. Now I've got 24/7 monitoring and real-time notifications alerting me about what's going on around my home. I love how safe this system makes me feel. I can't recommend this marketplace enough. Seriously, click the link below and check it out for yourselves.
In a world that never slows down, you need power that moves with you. Light as air, smart as you. Because the future isn't just fast, it's weightless. The laptop that moves with you, Asus ZenBook A14.
Trina K presented Danny Moss with an affidavit, one he had signed to authenticate screenshots from his business phone and from the security camera inside the shop. She walked him through the timeline. On September 23rd at 1:54 p.m., a phone call came into Dan's window tint from someone asking about getting a Jeep tinted. A couple days later, that appointment was set for 9 a.m. on September 25th. And that morning, at around 7 a.m., Danny texted the number with an update. The message read, quote, Dan's window tint here. I have a baby doctor appointment at 9, but it won't take long. Tristan should be at the shop to meet you if you still want to drop it off at 9, end quote. And we saw that phone number up on the screen, those of us in the courtroom. The phone number beginning with an Arizona area code. It wasn't ever completely clear in court whose number it was, but a quick search of my X account from 2023, the social media platform formerly known as Twitter, I can confirm the number that Danny texted was Alex Cox's own phone number. Not even the burner phone, just Alex Cox's phone number, the one his mother probably used. We were then shown a photo taken from inside the shop that day. It showed Danny cleaning the windows of that Jeep Wrangler right before applying the tint film. Talk about receipts. Danny was bringing them. It was a familiar color. I would call it ammo, olive, gray, puke, green, the color we all know so well now. Danny explained that Jeep Wranglers already come with factory tint on the back windows, so when someone requests darker tint, the film goes directly over the factory layer. They don't start over. So in this case, Danny was asked to apply 5% tint, which is extremely dark. He testified that when you layer 5% on top of existing tint, it becomes darker than the standard 5%. He estimated the end result is closer to 2% or 0% visibility, which in practical terms means you cannot see into that vehicle. Not in daylight, not through Trina asked him directly, quote, so if someone was laying or sitting in the back of this Jeep and you tried to walk by and look in there, you wouldn't be able to see them, end quote. And before Danny could answer Trina's question, Lori objected, claiming speculation, but Judge Goreski barely blinked, overruled. And Danny's answer, no, you could not be able to see inside. He added that while the back windows received 5% tint, the front 3 windows were given 20%, which is still dark.
What is such a high tint?
Then Trina circled back to procedure. She asked Danny if it was normal for people to drop off or pick up vehicles outside business hours. And he said yes, absolutely. In fact, it happens all the time with Danny's business. And in this case, he never saw the person who dropped off the Jeep. But the security camera did pick up something. He was able to zoom in on the license plate in the footage and take a screenshot. He said the plate was white with black letters, not an Idaho plate. He recognized it as a Texas license plate. He couldn't make out the characters, but the origin stood out. The jury was then shown the receipt from that day, September 25th, 2019, confirming the $200 charge for 5% tint in the back and 20% tint in the front. Danny reiterated he never saw who picked up the vehicle either, which means that likely the entire exchange, drop-off and pickup, happened when the shop was closed. And then it was Lori's turn. After dramatically asking for a minute to discuss something with her advisory counsel, she held up her finger like this. Just a minute. Always dramatic, Lori. She chose to not cross-examine Danny. So Danny was then done. But we didn't linger long because we quickly moved on to the next witness, Special Agent Thomas Miller with the Drug Enforcement Administration. Agent Miller has been with the DEA for 27 years and currently serves as the unit chief for the National License Plate Reader Program. Solid expert. Before we get into what he found, he gave me a quick explainer on what the program actually is and how it works. Take a listen.
Tell us what national license plate reader program is.
It's a law enforcement tool that was developed and utilized by the DEA to enforce Title 21 statutory authority, facilitate drug trafficking, investigation, and any other drug crimes.
Is there a here with the license plate reader? What is that? What is a license plate reader and how does that work?
It is a camera that we normally have positioned on the known drug route, utilized by drug traffickers. A lot of the LPRs have the software called optical character recognition, or better known as OCR. What this OCR software allows the LPR camera to trigger the alpha numeric character on a license plate and will create images and simultaneously it will also create the XML or a textual file. And at that time, the images and text files have been paired up and has been served saved in the DE server. Yes, license plate reader.
We give reference to say LPR.
Yes.
Is there a system called Diesel that relates to the national license plate reader?
Yes, Diesel is our acronym, very alert system. It stands for DEA Special Intelligence. And that's how we access the information that is saved from the LPR cameras.
So, can law enforcement agencies outside of the DEA access this diesel system to determine if any of the cameras have caught a specific license plate?
Yes. The El Paso Intelligence Center for the diesel platform is located. They will vet state, local, tribal, and other federal law enforcement personnel to have or gain access to our diesel platform.
So, certain law enforcement agencies can get access to something to see if a license plate has been read on any of the cameras.
Yes, as long as it's ingested into our diesel platform.
By ingested.
After the LPR camera that does feed into the diesel platform,
We then saw the license plate reader photo that captured the back of the Jeep traveling near Fort Worth, Arizona on the I-40 towards Gilbert on October 1st, 2019 at 6:52 a.m., just days after the window tinting and just one day before Bradley Boudreaux was shot at. And because of the time change in Arizona not participating in daylight savings time, it would have actually been 5:52 a.m. The window tinting happens in Idaho, followed by a timely Arizona road trip, all with Texas license plates, and then that infamous green color. I just want to lay out what we've learned already today. It is looking pretty solid, and I'm not sure how anyone could argue this isn't the car traveling down to Arizona for a crime that the jury here is thinking about. Except Lori can, and she does, argue about all of the evidence so far. And we will listen to that cross-exam here. And when it was time, I just want to say for Lori to cross-examine, it began with, in my opinion, a very comical moment after an objection. Just take a listen. Let's watch this cross-exam.
Mr. Thomas, is that the only picture that you have in Arizona on October 1st of the Jeep Wrangler?
I'm sorry.
Is it the only picture, license plate reader picture that you have in Arizona on October 1st?
Yes, that's the only picture in our diesel platform.
Okay. And how many license plate readers do you have in Gilbert, Arizona?
Hey, what's up? I'm Ian, and today we're going to talk about our 10x8.
Have in Gilbert, Arizona?
I am not sure exactly that.
Do you have any?
Yes, we do.
It's on Gilbert Road, isn't it?
But I'm not sure. We have over 11,000 cameras that feed into the diesel platform.
What about in Mesa, Arizona? Do you aware of any in Mesa, Arizona?
I am unaware of how many cameras that we have in Mesa, Arizona. We do have quite a few cameras, LPR cameras in Arizona.
And so of all those cameras that you have along this way, when this incident happened in Gilbert, Arizona, you don't have any other pictures of this Jeep? That's correct?
No, but there's several reasons.
What's the point she's trying to make here?
A lot of times we do have software and hardware issues with our LPR cameras, so they will be down at times.
What's the point you're trying to make here, Lori?
Camera is sometimes the speed and the amount of traffic will also have a bearing on whether or not something is captured. And then ways to defeat that as well.
There are ways to defeat them?
I'm sorry?
There are ways to defeat them?
Yes.
Sorry, Your Honor. So, Mr. Miller, of all your cameras, you have no other pictures on October 1st, 2019 of that Jeep Wrangler, is that correct?
That was that transaction of the diesel sighting. It's the only one.
Okay. So on October 2nd, you have no other pictures of this Jeep Wrangler as well, is that correct?
I'm not sure if that ever was ran. I'm not sure. What does happen is that DEA does have a detention policy where as information or data that goes into the diesel platform, then expunged or deleted or purged from the diesel platform after that stage.
You don't have any from October 3rd as well, is that correct?
about 3 hours from Gilbert, Arizona. On redirect, Trina asked whether or not the fact that they try to target drug trafficking areas has an impact on where the cameras are placed. And Agent Miller said that yes, it does. They try to target specific corridors and drug routes utilized by drug trafficking organizations. And then Trina seemed to get Lori on this one after Lori tried to assume there were cameras by the DEA in Gilbert. Let's take a listen to more of her noise, which I just have to say I loved it when Judge Bresky to disregard that noise because that's all Lori really is. I feel like when she cross-examines, but let's take a listen to this.
So you told us that DEA set up the system for drug trafficking, is that correct?
Correct.
Does that then have an impact on where cameras are located?
Yes, we specifically try to target drug corridors and drug routes that are utilized by the drug trafficking organizations.
So if you thought there might be some drug corridor going to Gilbert, then you might get a DEA license plate reader?
Correct. Or law enforcement partners that will adjust their healthcare camera data.
So do you, are all license plate readers that you see across the country associated to diesel?
No.
So just because there may be a license plate reader on Gilbert Road, does that mean that it's part of the diesel system?
No. In fact, there's so many different license plate reader programs out there that
CDW is building intelligent infrastructures with unified data.
out there that our program, comparatively to the totality of everything, is very small.
Yeah, yes, so it's not so small percentage of cameras. They don't cover everything.
No, not at all.
We were asked about if the vehicle is driving in a drug trafficking corridor that the DEA system in, if there would be ways to go not to get the
There's definitely ways they will remove their license plate. They will partially cover a plate. They will change a number temporarily. A lot of times we'll see things that will cover a plate or at least part of the plate to make sure that the healthcare did not take a damage.
So the amount of traffic, if traffic is busy, would it be less successful to locate all of those vehicles and all of their license plates?
Yes, and depending on the age of the camera, there is a failure rate of the images that are taken by an LPR camera. So if there is a vehicle that is fairly close or tailgating another vehicle, it may not take a picture of the front vehicle.
Ultimately, in this case, what you're able to tell us is that on October 1st, 2019, at about 5:52 a.m., Chief Wrangler with a Texas license plate L0997 is going westbound on I-40 in Arizona.
Yes, correct.
I like somebody that said that coughing was a passive-aggressive way to interrupt. It seems like her case have lessened, but her coughing has increased. And look, I've coughed during my live streams. Maybe she's coughing. But maybe she's coughing. There's a lot happening. She could probably cover.
Yeah,
her
she
mouth
do
or
seem very
turn to the
passive
side
aggressive.
Or wear a mask. She's not doing that. She's just letting everybody know she's coughing. Well, she cross-examines just like while the state questions. A lot of coughing today. After that, we had a quick sidebar before court and went to lunch recess. And during that sidebar, Lori was actually back to the headphone sets and no longer approaching the bench. I also want to point out that Lori seemed so set to sort of create doubt so far in the morning witnesses, sort of get people to question things, but I feel like all she is doing is solidifying the information they give. It almost feels like her cross-exam is emphasizing what the state wants to drive home. Am I the only one? I mean, you guys tell me, but trying to put speculation into the fact that there's only one picture of the license plate, which is all you need. And then for her to push
all you
this
need is one.
scenario, that aren't there other cameras in Gilbert and everywhere? And he explains that they're not all DEA cameras. Additionally, there are reasons that they wouldn't necessarily capture the license plate. Anyway, we're at lunch now. Right before lunch, there's a sidebar, but after lunch, we all gather back in. I do my lunch live. We come back into court, and next up on the stand was Emmy Lynn Sapinoso, a forensic scientist with a background to match. She holds a bachelor's degree in biology and a master's in forensic science. Emmy works at the Orange County DA's office as a forensic scientist right now, but in 2019, 6 years ago, she was working at Mesa Forensic Sciences as a forensic scientist. She walked the jury through the basics of DNA analysis, what it is, how it works, and how it's used in criminal investigations, laying out that foundation. She explained that a known source of DNA means exactly what it sounds like, a sample collected directly from an individual, like saliva, hair, or blood. Once a sample is analyzed in the lab, it becomes a DNA profile, a genetic fingerprint, if you will. In her role, Emmy creates profiles for both known sources and unknown sources. Those are the samples collected from crime scenes. Back in 2019, the Mesa Police Department had been contracted to handle DNA testing on behalf of the Gilbert Police Department. And in this case, Emmy was tasked with creating a known DNA profile for Alex Cox. So she received what's called a blood blot sample from the coroner's office. We remember Alex died in December 2019. So,
have you heard about Ryoko Pro? This is the cutting-edge portable Wi-Fi hotspot that people wish they found out about sooner. With this pocket Wi-Fi, you can simply stay connected whether you're working, traveling, or simply on the go.
In December 2019. So she received this from the coroner's office, a blood blot, and this is not to be confused with a blood clot, which was what we were initially hearing the judge say. It was clarified with Emmy. And a blood blot, this blood blot is a dried blood sample collected on circular filter paper. Scientists take a cutting from that paper to analyze the DNA. And Emmy noted that her process is carefully documented, every step recorded, so that other analysts can later review or verify the findings. And then came the fourth witness of the day, Lisa Perry. Lisa currently supervises the evidence processing unit for Mesa Police Forensic Services, but back in 2019, she was also working as a forensic scientist. She testified about DNA swabs she received on January 2nd, 2020. 6 in total. Again, this would be after Alex's death. He died in December, the month prior. 6 in total. All right, 6 DNA swabs. And after reviewing her notes, Lisa confirmed each swab was sealed, untampered, and logged properly. Like, that's what you have to lay the foundation for the jury. These were tested, these were taken appropriately. So here actually is what the swabs were taken from. I will tell you. So should we have some unknown DNA that we're going to compare probably with the blood blot? Here we are. 645,889, the steering wheel. 645,891, driver's side seatbelt. 645,893, gear shift. 645,894, passenger interior door handle. 645,895, lug nuts of the spare tire. love that one because he was seen carrying that tire to and from the storage unit. 645896, driver's side interior door handle. Lisa explained that for each of these items, she split the sample. Half was placed into a tube for DNA analysis, and the other half was preserved for possible future testing. So once prepped, the samples were passed on to a DNA analyst to create full profiles. Well, Lori Vallow, representing herself, chose not to cross-examine Lisa Perry. And with that, Lisa was dismissed from the stand. I find it fascinating who she chooses to cross-examine and who she doesn't. Danny from Tintin in Rexburg, no. The DEA taking a solid picture of her license plate, yes. Lisa Perry, who's created these DNA profiles, no thanks. So she was dismissed from the stand, and up next on the stand was retired Gilbert police officer Mary Ann Robb. And if you remember, we've heard of Officer Robb before. Remember Officer Robb? The officer that allegedly put her pen in the bullet hole in Brandon's Tesla on scene? Well, here she is in person. She, Officer Robb, Mary Ann Robb, retired on July 9th, 2022 after 34 years of service as a police officer. At the Gilbert Police Department, Robb had many different roles, such as crime prevention officer, arson detective, but primarily worked as a patrol officer. And on October 2nd, 2019, Robb responded to a 911 call for the shooting on West Phelps Street. And when she arrived, she saw a gentleman standing in the street in front of his home and a dark Tesla parked in the driveway. Just to the side of the driver's door, she noticed that there was a window laying on the ground. So after scanning the scene, she spoke with Brandon, the gentleman, and then went to look at the Tesla. And on the frame of the vehicle at the top of the car, she noticed what appeared to be a bullet hole, that bullet hole. And because of her experience with guns, both personally and professionally, she recognized it, again, as a bullet hole. She emphasized a lot, it was a bullet hole. And as we know, when the shooting first occurred, Brandon was startled. He was a little bit in shock and was trying to piece together what the heck had happened. And since his window didn't crack immediately, he mentioned it possibly being a paintball gun to the 911 operator. Well, he was just thinking out loud, he says, trying to make sense of the situation. That's what he testified to on last week on the stand. So to Officer Robb, he mentioned it could possibly have been a BB gun. But again, based on her experience, Officer Robb said, quote, definitely not. When he took a closer look at the hole for himself, Brandon checks out this hole as Officer Robb pointed it out to him. He said, quote, oh wow, I didn't see that, end quote. Finally, I guess realizing the gravity of the situation. And while inspecting the car, Robb wasn't able to immediately see an exit hole. So again, she decided to put her pen through the hole to see if she could figure out the trajectory of where the bullet went, where it came from. It went into the Tesla. After finding
Welcome to Stone Coat Countertops, the industry-leading epoxy brand that teaches do-it-yourselfers and contractors alike how to save or make thousands remodeling with epoxy. Our revolutionary formula combines affordability with results that will stand the test of time in homes, offices, and even commercial spaces. With their easy-to-use products and step-by-step instructions, you can unleash your creativity and achieve professional.
the Tesla. After finding where the bullet was, she called one of the officers that was in the area looking for the suspect's vehicle. She needed to let them know what they were dealing with. This was officially a shooting, a drive-by shooting. This was no BB gun or paintball gun. It was a real bullet hole and a real crime, an attempted murder. She asked the officer to come help her start a crime scene. Using her police phone, she began taking photos of the scene as well. Officer Robb said that Brandon initially seemed to be bewildered. Makes sense. Bewildered is probably how most people would feel. She described Brandon's demeanor as quiet and concerned. He didn't know how to react because he was still grappling with what happened. Brandon explained to her about how the window fell out, it shattered after he pulled into his driveway. When she showed him the bullet hole, he said, quote, "Well, that definitely isn't a BB gun," end quote. While she was questioning him, he said he needed to sit down and needed a minute. She said Brandon sat on the ground and tried to gather himself, and his hands were physically shaking. Can you imagine? All of a sudden realizing that someone was trying to take your life. And here he is, with police surrounding his car. Next, Rob asked Brandon to give a description of the vehicle. He said it was a darkish green Jeep Wrangler. He said as he was driving westbound on the street, the back of the Jeep flew open and he noticed the muzzle of a weapon. He initially thought there was a silencer, but then there was a very loud bang. We heard that bang. We've seen the bang, heard the bang on the ring camera. And when his window shattered, Brandon said that he got scared and took off around the block. Brandon told him the direction he drove after being shot at, and while he didn't have the numbers of the license plate, he knew it was absolutely a Texas plate. We were shown photos from the scene, and an orange cone indicated where Brandon had started making the left turn into his driveway as the shooting occurred. Trina Kay then had several questions about gun casings. Like other law enforcement witnesses had explained, given the description of the gun, Rob didn't expect to find the casing on the scene. If the gun was a rifle and only the muzzle was sticking out, the casing would have ejected back into the Jeep itself. Rob also explained that as a Jeep owner herself, she knows that you have to remove the rear spare tire in order to open the back window. Take a listen.
Retired officer for more than 30 years. Have you fired a rifle?
Yes, numerous times. I'm an avid hunter.
When you fire a single shot from a rifle, you think
No, it depends on what rifle you're shooting.
if you have a bolt action rifle, if you shoot, it's that you need to manually open up the bolt, the projector, the casing will go out, will eject, and then you will put another bolt, or you close the bolt, put another round in your gun. If it's semi-automatic rifle, then yes, as soon as you shoot, the casing will pop out and another bullet will go into the chamber. Based upon what Brandon had told you, if you only saw the end of the barrel of the back window, did you expect to find a casing around here?
No, not at all.
Why not?
Well, it's a Jeep, and I also have a Jeep Wrangler myself, but the barrel is just kind of right up by the end of the Jeep where the window opens up. The rest of the rifle is inside the Jeep, so wherever that person is, whether it's the driver's seat or it's got to be the driver's seat, passenger seat area, as soon as the rifle is fired, the bullet comes out, it's going to be right inside the Jeep. It's not going to go out the back end because it's a long rifle. So the casing, if it was a semi-auto, it's going to fall in right there somewhere in the driver's seat or maybe in between the passenger seat, that area.
You in fact tell the other officer in charge that you arrived at the scene that you didn't expect to find a casing.
That is correct, yes.
Told us that you had used Wrangler in the past.
Yes.
In order to open that back window, you have someone with your tire. You have to open the window.
Yes, I mean, even if you didn't have a rear tire, you've got to open up the tailgate. The tailgate comes first, then the window.
So if there's a tire on it, you want to open just the window and wait for it to come.
That is correct.
After, I guess, as you are collecting this information, did you call to have detectives come to the library?
Yes, I went back to my patrol car, contacted my sergeant, advised him what I had, and the detectives were dispatched out to the scene.
Now, while you were the person who was having contact with Brandon, you're observing him of his friends show up. Yes, they did. I'm even here. Did a couple of his friends show up? Yes, they did.
Next, Officer Rob said that they taped off the aerial
Okay, still got a little bit more.
One
We
of
still
Brandon's
got a little
friends
bit
was
more.
initially in the vicinity of the scene, but was asked to move once they began putting up the tape. And Rob then testified about the moment. She was told about Lori and Alex possibly being a part of the shooting. Nicholson.
Did you have a couple different contacts with Brendan as you were gathering information, going back to your car and making some calls? Yes, I had contact with him in front of his home, and also when he had him and his friends go across the street and sit on the grass. Talk to Brandon about not like a better response. Yeah, I asked him if he had any enemies. And so, because of the way that he talked to me about this, where it's unfair and he arrives and you're open and a barrel of a rifle comes out, you kind of determine you might be the person in there. That's correct, yes. Did Brandon tell you that he could think that was his ex-wife's family? Yes, he did. Did he tell you that he thought this might be in relation to incidents that occurred to him? Yes, he did. Did he provide you the names of people who were involved in that that he thought might be involved in this issue? Yes, he did. He said Lori Vallow and Alex Cox. During your conversation later with Brandon, did you provide you information that Lori Vallow and her husband at the time, Pearl Vallow, was previously lived in Texas? Yes. Was that sufficient to give you about exactly? If these folks are from Texas, Texas plates, the possibility to the two together that possibly could be the suspect.
Officer Rob wrote down everything Brandon said, including his morning routine, everything that took place that day. People he thought might want to harm him, all to relate to her sergeant and detectives during their briefing. She was also wearing a body cam to have documentation of the investigation. Rob stayed by Brandon's side until detectives arrived to take over. And when it was Lori's turn to cross-examine Officer Rob, she talked with Pamela Hicks for a few seconds, that's her counsel, before getting up and going to the podium. The first thing Lori wanted to know was how far Brandon was standing in the street when she first arrived. Rob testified that he was maybe 2 or 3 feet away from the sidewalk. She parked across the street from his driveway and had Brandon move onto the sidewalk so they could talk about what was happening. They spoke for about 5 minutes before she made her way and looked at the test line. Next, Lori asked why Officer Rob, why in the world she would put her pen in the bullet hole. Rob said that she was looking for the projectile and the trajectory of how the bullet went in, so she could figure out where it may have exited. Lori seemed to think that sticking a pen in a bullet hole is a proper protocol, or something. At least that's what her questioning seemed to relay. She kept asking questions like, why did you wiggle your pen around it there? And is that a typical thing to just stick your pen in there? And Officer
Weird
Rob said,
question.
yes, it is a typical thing to do to find trajectory. It's not like she's sticking her pen in the bullet hole of a body. It's a car. And she was trying to see where the bullet went, where it came from, where it was going. Lori asked if doing that could have dislodged the projectile. But Rob said no, absolutely no. And no projectiles could be found in the hole itself. Someone else located the projectiles later. And so let's listen to what Officer Rob was able to determine. by utilizing the pen.
Figure out the trajectory with your pin.
I could see which way it went into the vehicle.
And which way was
I believe it went up. I don't have the picture in front of me, so I don't know. It's kind of hard to try to explain. But where the driver would have been, and his head would have been right here. The projectile, the bullet hole was approximately maybe 1.5 to 2 inches above where Brandon's head would have been in the driver's seat. And it went up, and it would have been kind of an upward motion into the frame of the car. An upward motion. Kind of going up like this.
And how big was that actual hole that you viewed with your eyes?
I did not measure it, but it was definitely a rifle round.
So in your experience with rifles, how big would the rifle's bullet be to have to make that size of a hole? Like a typical rifle bullet or something bigger? I don't know much about bullets.
If you want me to guess, I would say maybe a 30-06.
Big bullet.
And so
About the
did you
size
give
of a
these
308
trajectory,
bullet.
Points to when you were briefing the detectives when they got there, what you thought the trajectory was?
I did not, because they could easily see what was where the trajectory was. I'd like them to make their determination.
You gotta love these little things that Lori throws in while she's cross-examining. It doesn't feel fair, like she's testifying, where she says, sorry, can you explain this? I don't know a lot about bullets. That felt like it should be another objection. She does that a lot. She is there to ask questions, not comment. She is the defendant, charged with an attempted murder. So to throw out, sorry, I just don't know a lot about bullets. Would you help me out here? Feels like a moment where she's attempting to testify while cross-examining a witness. I also gotta love that she says she doesn't know a lot about bullets. Yeah, all right, that's because you hire people to do the dirty work. Next, Lori asked if Officer Rob located anything in the back seat, such as projectiles or glass, but she said she didn't recall. She said the glass seemed to be cracked, but mostly intact on the ground and hadn't been moved. She didn't see a hole where the bullet may have gone through the glass or an exit anywhere. It was as if the bullet possibly stopped when it hit the frame of the car. She didn't see anything in the hole when shining her flashlight inside of it either. So then Lori brought up that Brandon initially thought the gun could have been a paintball or a BB gun, and that there may have been a little boy outside. But Officer Rob again said that she doesn't recall him saying anything about a boy. And I hadn't heard anything about a boy until this trial, honestly. So Officer Rob is saying, don't know what you're talking about there with a little boy. Rob testified that before they put up the crime scene tape, Brandon's friend was walking around the car. Lori asked if she knew that there was a piece of glass later found in the street, but Officer Rob said she wasn't sure about that. Lori asked if it was possible for Brandon or his friend to have gotten glass on their shoe before the tape was put up and kicked it or moved it into the road, and Rob said that was technically a possibility. It's not impossible. Lori then asked if Officer Rob thought it was strange for Brandon to be standing in the road after just being shot at, since the shooter could have just come back around to shoot again. That's an interesting question, but prosecutor
Weird question,
this
but
question
okay.
for speculation, and it was sustained. It is certainly asking an expert witness to speculate. Next, Lori brought up the word Officer Rob used earlier to describe Brandon's demeanor. Bewildered, that word I pointed out as well that was used, and he wasn't sure what had happened, and so she asked if Brandon showed her a photo on his phone of different greens and believed that the Jeep was, quote, camo color. Rob said that he showed another officer the photo, but she did hear him again say camo green. So she was saying that she never heard puke green. But I have to laugh because what is puke green, that could be camel green or olive green. Unless you're talking about the emoji, then it's fluorescent. But I mean, really, I just think it's a moot point. It's green. Everybody's saying it's green. Rob testified that in her estimation, the Jeep would have been about 10 feet away from Brandon when the gun fired. Can you believe that? 10 feet. Lori asked if it would be difficult to hit your target with a rifle but only 10 feet away, and Rob said no, it wouldn't. Lori tried to slip a few more questions in about what the neighbor told Rob, and thinking that they saw a blue Jeep, but that question was sustained for hearsay. The last question Lori had for Officer Rob was, quote, "The only witness you had that heard a loud bang was Brandon. Is that correct?" End quote. And Officer Rob said yes. So I guess Lori is forgetting that the bang was captured on a neighbor's Ring doorbell, which the jury also heard. But nonetheless, we moved on to redirect. And on redirect, Prosecutor Trina circled back to clarify why Brandon initially thought the shot could have come from a BB gun. She brought it back up, and I know a lot of you guys are mentioning this in chat and in emails. It is wild. Yes, both Tammy Daybell and Brandon Boudreaux initially thought this has got to be a paintball gun. They were scared enough when someone tried to shoot them, they called 911. They knew it was scary. But then they tried to lessen it, almost like they were in shock, and say maybe it was a paintball gun. To me, it's more confirmation that this is just an initial reaction to shock and terror almost.
Yeah.
That this could possibly be an attempt on their life, though, but it is and was.
It was.
So, Brandon initially thought that the shot could have been a BB gun, and she asked if it was because there was no hole through the window coming into the vehicle, and Rob said that was correct. It was clear to her that Brandon had no idea there was a bullet hole until she pointed it out. Trina also had Rob clarify that just because Brandon was quote unquote bewildered doesn't mean he wasn't able to articulate what he saw. He could describe the two-door Jeep, the back window opening, the lack of a spare tire, the Texas plates, the bang, his window shattering, the color of the Jeep. He was just in shock, as any of us would be. I can't imagine. And working out in his mind all of the possibilities. The jurors actually had some questions for Officer Rob as well. And, next up then was Detective Ryan Pillar. Finally, we were wondering where he was. Well, he finally returned to the scene to continue his direct examination from Friday. And the court agreed to go a little out of order again to make sure the state could get in all of their out-of-town witnesses. All these stuff was applied in court, and again, you remember we had a delay because of Lori's quote-unquote sickness, and then some witnesses that were flying out had to be canceled, and she's had to reschedule them. We've had Idaho witnesses today. So they're working on getting all of their out-of-town witnesses in. But now, Fuller is back. If you recall, he was the lead agent on this case back in 2019 and an integral part of this investigation. And the last thing discussed was collecting DNA, fingerprints, and gunshot residue from inside the Jeep. Prosecutor Trina picked back up with the collection of GSR, or gunshot residue, and after collecting the GSR and DNA swabs, they were carefully bagged, sealed, and given their own identification. And given their own identification numbers. And while processing the Jeep, Detective Fuller took photos for documentation, and we were shown photos of the impounded Jeep, which had sealed all of the doors to show they had not been opened prior to being processed. The tinting was also, again, particularly dark, next to Danny moths, and you could not see into the windows without shining a flashlight right up against them. The spare tire had also been put back in place, and the license plate was from the state of Texas and registered to Lori Vallow. which is interesting that it had already been changed because we'd always heard it as registered to Charles Vallow, we're hearing Charles Laurie. Next, Detective Miller explained that due to what Brandon described at the scene, he wanted to check for gunshot residue primarily in the back cab of the Jeep and around the back window frame. They also checked around the rear and driver's side window, the passenger and driver's side front seat, and the ceiling of the Jeep. At the time they were processing the Jeep, they weren't aware that the rear bench seat had been removed during the incident. And next, Miller testified that areas he wanted checked for potential DNA. These included the steering wheel, inner and outer door handles, the gear shift, the driver and passenger seatbelt buckles, and the lug nuts that hold the spare tire in place. At this time, they weren't aware if there was one or more people in the Jeep during the shooting. They didn't know. You couldn't see inside.
Yeah.
And was there a getaway driver? They had to wonder, right?
They didn't know nothing.
Originally, I've also wondered. But they dusted those same areas as well as all of the mirrors and back windows.
As soon as she gets done talking, I'm just going to end it.
Were located. Miller testified that inside the vehicle they located registration and insurance information for Charles and Lori Vallow. And after collecting all of the evidence, the items were transported from Rexburg, Idaho, to the Gilbert Police Department to be impounded. Eventually, the items were sent to be tested by either the Phoenix or Mesa Police Departments, and that blood blot with Alex's DNA was also sent for comparison to the DNA located inside the Jeep. Next, Detective Miller explained that he was responsible for requesting search warrants to obtain cell phone records for numbers associated with Lori and Alex. He analyzed their phone logs for October 2nd, 2019, and found that there was a call from Alex to Lori at 9:02 a.m. Idaho time, which would be 8:02 a.m. Arizona time. This would have been approximately 35 minutes after Brandon left his home for the morning. The call lasted around 24 minutes. That's a long phone call. Miller also obtained records from Melanie's phone number, who, as we know, was Brandon's soon-to-be ex-wife at the time, Lori's niece, a niece that she considers a daughter. During his investigation, the FBI informed Detective Miller that he had located a track phone that was used during the time frame of the shooting in Gilbert. A search warrant was issued for the track phone number, which turned out to be subscribed to a Gmail account that belonged to Alex. From the warrant, Miller was able to determine that the track phone was purchased from Walmart in Idaho Falls. That's right by Rexburg. It was activated on September 26, 2019, and used only until October 2nd, 2019. This track phone, or a burner phone, as it's also called, the track phone's call log shows that it only ever communicated with one phone number, which belonged to Chad Daybell. The logs show that the track phone, aka burner phone, communicated with Chad's phone leading up to and immediately after the shooting took place. And with all of these records, Miller decided to reach out to the FBI for assistance with tracking and cell phone data analysis. When the FBI enters the picture. An FBI cellular data analyst was able to track and map locations of the phone during the time frame of the shooting. You will likely, I'm assuming, get to see these maps from the data analysts themselves, and that was all from direct examination. Up next was Lori's turn to cross-examine Detective Miller, something that never happened on Friday, something we've been waiting for. He testified that he's been the lead case agent for a couple hundred different cases. It's the case agent's responsibility to review all of the reports made by the other officers, lab techs, and question the findings. Lori moved on to questioning Brandon's recollection of the color of the Jeep again and wanted to know what color he originally told Officer Rob. Well, Miller testified that he initially referred to it as a green colored Jeep, then a camo green. I'll see a trend. Green. Green is the trend. Throw in a little gray, throw in a little puke, throw in a little camo. But guys, I think pretty consistently everyone knows this Jeep is green.
Today's most demanding workstation users choose HP workstations powered by AMD Ryzen's Threadripper Pro processor.
Other witnesses referred to it as various colors, which led him to surmise that it was just a darker colored Wrangler though. But I think, again, chalk it up to being green. Doesn't specifically remember anyone saying dark blue, but that somehow has been brought up. But again, it always comes back to green. Anyway, next.
Okay,
Lori
there
pointed
goes
out that
Charles.
in all of his reports, Miller referred to the Jeep as gray. I wanted to know where he first gleaned that information. Well, he testified that he first became aware of the Jeep being gray after having contact with the Chandler Police Department on October 9th. Brandon and the neighbors never called it, though, a gray Jeep. Next, Lori stated that only one small piece of glass was located in the road and wanted to know if it was ever tested to see if it actually belonged to the Tesla window. Miller testified no. It was not tested because it was consistent with the other shards of glass and he believed it to be related. Lori also said that in the body cam, Brandon could be seen shuffling glass around with his foot and wanted to know if it was possible for him to have moved the glass into the road on his shoe. Trina wanted to object for speculation, but Miller was too fast and answered that it was possible, and Judge Boreski did allow the answer to stand. Miller testified that he and 11 other detectives participated in the line search of the neighborhood looking for other pieces of evidence like glass, bullet fragments, and projectiles. No additional evidence was located in the line. They also used a metal detector to search around the area for more fragments. And just like earlier, when Lori asked Officer Rob about a neighbor claiming to see a blue Jeep, she asked Miller if the same neighbor told him that she saw a tire on the back. Trina objected, and it was sustained for speculation, and Lori requested a sidebar, but her request was denied. So I just want to say that she is really trying to confuse the jury about the color of the Jeep.
Very much.
I don't know where the dark blue thing is coming from. Sounds like
Me neither.
Sounds like testimony from Lori, but you know, we're hearing a lot of things. We've heard gray, it is true, but olive green often is agreeing with gray in it, so that's not necessarily not accurate. Additionally, people pointed out as well that gray and green, if you are colorblind, which many men are, those are often two colors that are mixed up. But nonetheless, like I said, green seems to be the overlying trend. Lori then asked why no measurements, though, were taken to see how far away the Jeep was from the Tesla when the shot was fired. Miller said they didn't measure because they didn't know exactly where the Jeep was located. Makes sense. But Lori argued that if the Jeep was said to be nose to nose with the white van, they would know exactly where it was located. But Miller still said that without the Jeep actually being there, it would only be an estimation. Next, Lori asked if the police department ever decided what the trajectory of the bullet was, and Miller said no. They could not accurately figure the trajectory measurements because they didn't know the exact height, distance, or angle in which it came from. And they can't determine that with just the hole on the Tesla alone, especially since the Tesla had been moved. Next, Lori wanted to know if Miller knew what kind of gun was used, and I just want to take a listen to some of that line of questioning.
There's dozens of types of ammunition that are made, both of which can be utilized by a handgun or a rifle. The information I was provided, it seems that a rifle was the most reasonable weapon that was utilized to shoot at Mr. Monroe's car. But to give an answer for the type of ammunition, whether it be coming from a specific weapon, I cannot answer.
And you're the case agent, is that correct?
Yes.
This is your investigation, is that correct?
Yes.
So did you not think it would be a good idea to do whatever kind of testing to find out what kind of gun this was?
There would be no way to find out what kind of gun this was.
There's no way to determine if it was a rifle versus a handgun?
No.
There's no way to determine whether it was taken from 30 feet or 10 feet?
No.
There's no way to determine if it was going up or going down?
No.
There's no way to determine if it was going left or it was going right?
There's evidence to show that it was going eastbound while the vehicle was traveling westbound.
Snarky, right? Very
Just
snarky.
rude.
In my opinion, you guys noticed it too.
Rude. Currently, they're in day 4. I'll come back to you guys later on. I just had a little bit of time before the live. I plan on doing later. with that being said, see y'all later. Hopefully y'all come back at 8. Peace.